He was not the flashiest man in the room. He was not the most charismatic. But Bill Gates understood something terrifying before almost anyone else did. The future would belong to the person who controlled the software. Not the computer, not the hardware, the software. And once he realized that, he moved with a cold, almost ruthless logic that would help build one of the most powerful empires in history. So how did a quiet kid from Seattle become the man who shaped the digital world? And why did so many people fear the way he won? That is the story. Bill Gates was born in 1955 in Seattle, Washington, into a highly educated and ambitious family. His father was a lawyer, and his mother was active in civic and business circles. From the beginning, he grew up in an environment where achievement was expected, not optional. As a child, Gates was intelligent, curious, and deeply focused. He loved reading, solving problems, and understanding how things worked. He was not a boy who simply accepted the world as it was. He wanted to break it down, examine it, and improve it. That hunger for logic and control became part of his identity long before Microsoft ever existed. At school, Gates stood out almost immediately. He was bright, competitive, and difficult to ignore. He liked to challenge ideas, push boundaries, and think faster than the people around him. At Lakeside School, he discovered something that would change his life forever: computers. In the early 1970s, computers were rare, expensive, and mysterious. But Gates saw more than a machine. He saw a system. He saw a future where software would become more important than the hardware itself. That insight was ahead of its time, and it gave him a direction that would shape everything he built later. For Gates, computers were never just a hobby. They became an obsession. He spent long hours learning programming, testing systems, and thinking about how to make machines do more. What made him different was not just intelligence. It was hunger. He did not want to admire technology from the outside. He wanted to own the logic behind it. Even as a teenager, he was already thinking like a strategist. He understood that if you could write the software that everyone depended on, you could shape the entire market. That was the first real glimpse of the mind that would later dominate the industry. At Lakeside, Gates met Paul Allen, who shared his fascination with computers and the future. Paul was older, more experienced, and equally excited by the idea that computing could become huge. Together, they formed a partnership built on speed, curiosity, and ambition. Paul had the vision to see the opportunity. Bill had the drive to turn it into a business. That partnership became the seed of Microsoft. In 1973, Gates entered Harvard University. On paper, it looked like the beginning of a classic elite path. But Gates was never built for a slow academic life. He was surrounded by brilliant people, yet he already felt that the real opportunity was happening outside the classroom. The computer revolution was not waiting for graduation. It was happening now. Then came the Altair 8800. When Gates saw it, he understood something immediately. The market for personal computers was opening, but it needed software. So he made a decision that would become legendary. He left Harvard to build a company. That company was Microsoft. Microsoft started small, but the vision behind it was enormous. Gates and Allen wanted to write software for the emerging personal computer market. They were not trying to build the machine itself. They were trying to build the brain that would power it. That was the brilliant move. While others fought over hardware, Gates focused on the layer that every machine would need. If software became standard, Microsoft would become indispensable. It was not luck, it was strategy. The biggest breakthrough came when IBM needed an operating system for its personal computer. IBM was enormous. Microsoft was still young, but Gates moved fast. Microsoft did not even own the operating system it would eventually supply. Gates arranged the deal anyway, and that decision changed everything. MS-DOS became one of the most important pieces of software in history. And because Microsoft kept the rights to license it to others, the company did not just grow, it multiplied with the entire PC market. That was the moment Microsoft stopped being a startup and started becoming an empire. As personal computers spread, Microsoft became the invisible force behind them. People saw the computers, but Gates saw the operating system. Then Windows arrived, and Microsoft's power expanded even further. Suddenly, the company was not just part of the PC revolution. It was the center of it. Gates understood scale better than almost anyone in the industry. He wanted Microsoft software everywhere, and he was willing to be aggressive to make that happen. By the 1990s, Microsoft was not just successful, it was defining the digital world. Bill Gates was never a smooth public celebrity. He was analytical, intense, and often blunt. In interviews and meetings, he could look cold, sharp, and intimidating. He did not care much about being loved. He cared about being right. That made him both respected and controversial. To supporters, he was a visionary. To critics, he was a monopolist who controlled too much of the market. Both sides had a point. Gates built by logic, but he also built by force. As Microsoft grew, the conflict around it grew too. The company fought rivals, drew the attention of regulators, and became one of the most scrutinized corporations in the world. The battle with Apple became especially symbolic. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates represented two different philosophies. Jobs built with taste and emotion. Gates built with systems, scale, and control. Their rivalry became one of the defining dramas of the tech era. At the same time, governments began asking whether Microsoft had become too powerful. When you dominate a market, resistance always follows. Over time, Gates moved away from day-to-day control and into a broader leadership role. Microsoft remained powerful, but Gates himself began thinking about something bigger than business. He had already won the technology game. Now he wanted to shape the world in a different way. That change marked the beginning of the next era of his life, one that would focus less on software and more on legacy. Bill Gates became one of the most influential philanthropists in the world. Through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, he redirected vast resources toward global health, education, vaccines, disease prevention, and poverty reduction. This changed his image completely. He was no longer only the software billionaire. He became a global policy figure with the power to influence real outcomes across continents. Some saw this as redemption. Others saw it as a reinvention. But the scale of impact was undeniable. Few people in history have shaped both the digital economy and global philanthropy on this level. Bill Gates' legacy is not just Microsoft. It is the idea that software can drive the world, that systems matter, that timing matters, that vision without execution is useless, but execution without strategy is even weaker. He was not the loudest founder. He was not the most glamorous, but he was one of the most effective thinkers of his generation. He saw a future that others did not see clearly enough, moved before the crowd, and built an empire that helped define the modern era. And that is why his story still matters. Bill Gates was never just a rich man. He was a builder of systems, a master of timing, and a founder who understood that the real power of technology is not the machine itself. It is the software underneath it. From a curious boy in Seattle to the face of the PC revolution, from a college dropout to one of the most influential people on earth, his story is a lesson in focus, strategy, and the long game. He did not just participate in the future. He helped write it.